a producer of heritage breed livestock and a wide array of vegetables and berries on just over 39 acres. They also produce a full array of garden vegetables, many of them heirloom varieties raised naturally, as well as an assortment of berries, including raspberries, blackberries, gooseberries, black, red, and white currants, mulberries, and elderberries. And now, here's Mark Scherzer.
September 11th, 2020 dawned refreshingly cool on the farm, with a dark and foreboding sky. Very different from the crystal clear crispness of September 11th, 2001, which we've now come to expect on this day of remembrance. As my friend Steve commented, that's an unspoken promise between God and all New Yorkers. Like, yeah, it's a sad anniversary, but you know it'll be much cooler and less muggy from this day forward. Just like he put a rainbow in the sky after the flood. The darkness, however, was appropriate to the mood of morose contemplativeness that often overcomes me at this time of year. That mood is built on a solid foundation. I have a lifelong history of post-Labor Day dread at returning to school, where as a child I was reminded of just what an outsider, a faggy, nerdy Jewish kid in a jockey Catholic town, I was. Add to that 9/11 itself, getting caught in the black cloud of the South Tower collapse trying to get back to my apartment, fearful for the fate of my partner, Peter, and then observing from the windows of that apartment during periodic visits over the ensuing months, the somber removal of remains from the World Trade Center site. The trauma of September 11th for me is immediately followed by the trauma of September 12th, the date of Peter's death in 2018. Have I mentioned Yom Kippur, or the current sorry state of the world? No wonder when my friend Susie sent around an email the other day labeled "Today's Darkness," and she was transmitting a picture of the smoky brown pall from nearby wildfires engulfing a hiking area near her California home, I replied, and there are so many other potential references for that subject line. The stage was well set then for me to ponder the current sad question I face on the farm, what to do about Aisha. Aisha, you may recall, is the elderly 12-year-old ewe who is now blind. She's the daughter of the late beloved Sultana, who herself was a bottle-fed lamb and therefore close to us, and who acculturated Aisha to be similarly human-friendly. There's still a great mutual affection between us. But unfortunately, Aisha's blindness is having a major negative impact on the quality of her life. This September 11th morning, when I got to the barn, I was pleased to observe that the flock had already moved itself out to the far northern pasture, about 2/3 of the way to the Ryder farm we abut, to graze. Far enough that if I called, "Hey girls," to let them know their morning grain treat was waiting them in their feed bowls, they would not hear me. I was fine with that. I figured I would just leave the barn doors open and they would enjoy the grain when they decided to mosey back. As I was heading back to the house, however, I heard the unmistakable baas Aisha bellows out, audible all over the neighborhood, when she's lost. Looking out, I saw Aisha all alone at the crest of the hill. The rest of the flock, I figured, must have wandered elsewhere. When I reached her location, I realized the flock was really no more than about 100 feet away, just slightly down the other side of the hill. But Aisha was walking in circles, frantically, unable to find them. I walked her over to rejoin the herd, and as soon as she was close enough to smell them and hear them, knowing she was among them, she stopped buying. Mission accomplished. I strolled back toward the barn. When I got about halfway there, the flock, in its collective wisdom, figured out that a grain treat was imminent and started following me. 80% of the time, Aisha manages to stay with them, but this time, for the second time in the morning, she did not. Again, I heard the baaing, and again she remained out in that pasture circling. A second trek out there was required, and this time, because the rest of the flock had already thundered into the barn, I had to guide her the whole way back, keeping her on track, averting collisions with fences, and often running to head her off when she arbitrarily changed direction. Unlike humans, who through a combination of technology, compensation from other senses, and social accommodation can function reasonably well in society despite visual impairments, a blind herd animal like Aisha is seriously diminished in her quality of life. Baaing loudly out in the middle of a field, when isolated, is likely to attract predators. More important, being part of a herd is part of the essence of sheepiness. Being alone makes them distraught, and spending a substantial part of each day lost and distraught makes for a very low quality of life. On the other hand, Aisha in most respects functions normally. She enjoys her grain treat. She butts other sheep out of the way to get her share. She's a member in good standing of the flock. I wonder if the 80% of the time she spends with the normal sheep quality of life is good enough to make her feel like the other 20%, that bad time, is worth going through. Unfortunately, she can't tell me. If this were a more business-like farm, an animal like Aisha, past reproductive age and with wool of low quality because of declining health, would have been culled long ago. If this were a rich man's hobby farm, I would have used some of my vast resources to explore eye surgery as a solution. But the farm is somewhere in a gray zone in between, as Aisha is somewhere in a gray zone between livestock and pet. I've got to balance the resources available to run the farm against its needs, and try at the same time to keep the best interests of the animals in my thoughts. I suspect I'll just keep muddling through for a while, devoting part of my days to rescuing Aisha, until there's a discernible greater shift to the negative in her quality of life. One might say that while Aisha is wandering in her darkness, I'm wandering a bit lost in my own.
Agriculture is underwritten by Takana Farms, LLC, a small-scale producer of heritage-bred livestock and a wide array of vegetables and berries on just over 39 acres in Germantown, New York. More information, 518-537-3815.